It's close. Mike Fisher reporting from Frisco on a somber episode in some ways. I'm trying to figure out what should we do first. There's stuff you want to know, and then there's stuff that I feel you need to know. That's kind of a news judgment sort of a thing. We are going to touch on the Thursday, Friday passing of two legendary names in sports, Hank Aaron, and I'm going to touch on how he touched me, and maybe you, if you're of a certain age, and the widow of Tom Landry, the very gracious Alicia Landry, who passed away this week as well, and I'll touch on a tale with us and Alicia Landry too. First, let's do a DAK trade for DESHAUN, and let's be serious about it. We've talked here in the past. Bree and I had a conversation that I hope you saw. I hope you go and see all these videos. Just go hit them all. There's gold in them. There videos sometimes from months ago, before we were on 20,000 followers. I think we are there now. So tomorrow we will wake up in the morning and do the 20,000 club giveaway of the Des Bryant hoodie. Thank you, Des, and thanks to you guys for hanging out here, for subscribing, for hitting that bell, for telling your friends, for having intelligent conversation. And let's have intelligent conversation about this. I'm going to show you the how-to of a trade of Dak Prescott to Houston that would bring Deshaun Watson here. One thing that's fascinating about it, and I'm seeing this in our coverage of the Texans situation and in our coverage of the Cowboys situation, y'all are rallying around your Dak. And that's happening in Houston too. When this idea gets broached, there's three reactions. Reaction number one is, that's clickbait. I'm going to show you how it's not. Reaction number two is that my beloved Texans would never give up my beloved Deshaun and shouldn't. And reaction number three is, my beloved Cowboys would never give up my beloved Dak and shouldn't. It's funny how you back your guy when you're threatened to lose him, even if it seems kind of clear that one of them is better than the other one by more than a tiny bit. We'll get to that as we go. So, Cowboys' number one priority this offseason. Number one, make peace with the quarterback. Labor peace. Houston Texans, number one priority. Make peace with their quarterback. Peace of a different sort, but nevertheless. But what if they can't? What if they both can't? We know that Cal McNair, the owner of the Texans, has reached out to Deshaun, issued a private apology for how they've botched everything there. We don't have time to make a list. They can fix it. Hire a head coach. Not that Deshaun is demanding who the coach should be. Hire a head coach that fits the locker room. That's all. And maybe everything will be fine. But what if it's not? Same thing with Dak and the Cowboys. All they have to do is come to an agreement. And then we don't have to do this exercise. But what if they don't? What if Houston doesn't? What if Deshaun doesn't? What if Dallas doesn't? What if Dak doesn't? Remember that Jerry said the thing about leverage to us the other day. Dak's got all the leverage. What he didn't say, and my man Brian Broaddus is the first and only to point this out, he said Dak's got all the leverage. What Jerry didn't say is, and therefore I'm going to bow to it. We forgot to ask him that. My fiance has all the leverage. Oh boy, that's not going to be a very good marriage. Oh, I didn't say I'm going to marry him. I just said he's my fiance with all the leverage. Maybe I don't care if he has the leverage. Maybe I won't marry him. What if unhappy Deshaun stays unhappy? And what if unsigned to a long-term deal, Dak stays unsigned? I had somebody on Facebook couple people, by the way, they not only were they doing the clickbait thing on this story, which you can find more on Cowboys-SI.com, but they are also going, you can't. They're trying to tell me what the rules are. You can't sign a guy who's not. You can't trade a guy who's not signed. Fish, clickbait. Read the story or listen to what we're saying here. Well, I'll explain it. Just give me a minute. But trust me when I tell you, when we're done with this fish report, nobody that watched this fish report, zero. Oh, there might be one goofball that gives me a thumbs up. Nobody's going to say this was clickbait. They will say this was click meat. Fish meat. So, priority number one, each club trying to make its quarterback happy and peaceful. Priority number two, for every NFL team, talent evaluation. Cover every base. Look under every rock. I talked about this the other day on G-Bag Nation. It's the personnel department's job, the general manager's job, to look up on the big magnetized board, which now is actually, I think, just on a computer. But it used to literally be a board up in a room, and every player up there had a magnetized name was up on the board. I know, I think Donnie Nelson with the Mavericks still does that. It's old school, but there it is. You can touch it. And you got to know who's on that board. You got to know who's moving around and who's good and who's, you look up there and say, DESHAUN. We got DESHAUN as the fourth best quarterback in the league, whatever. They are fielding trade inquiries at Energy Stadium in Houston. Teams are calling and they're answering the phone. And when you just take a breath on it, you understand, well, that's their job. They could make a dramatic show of it and let the public know we slammed down the phone when the Washington, but you answer the phone because you're obliged to look at everything. Same thing in Dallas. The Cowboys are obliged to be aware of everything. I know the Joneses are going to go to Cabo or whatever here pretty soon, or go to Greece or wherever they want to go for spring break. No, wait, is that? Yeah, that's coming up, isn't it? Grandpa Jerry takes all the kids away for spring break, and then away goes the Cowboys general manager. That's true every year. Luckily, he's still got access to his phone. Steven's still on his laptop, and Will McClay is running the show at the Star. It's fine. It really is pretty fine. Fairly fine. Okay. It's adequately fine. It's not perfect. But DAK is the hub of the wheel, and the Joneses admit that, and so everything's going to be fine, but what if? What if? So, since we believe that teams should examine every aspect of every possibility, what if that guy? What if him? What if he? Then we should do it too. And it's not clickbait to do it. Not if you do it smartly and professionally. You don't hear me screaming, do you? You don't hear me pounding the table saying, they must. There is no they might. It's a negotiation in both cities with both quarterbacks. So in the coming weeks, let's assume that the Texans' problem doesn't get fixed. They get offers featuring picks, of course. They will likely not get an offer featuring a player who is comparable to Deshaun Watson. Who would that be? Where would that player be? What other quarterback? What other star quarterback? There's only one. DAK. Comparable in some way to Deshaun at the most important position in sports. And then, while that's going on there, they're evaluating their offers. Here at Star, let's assume there's not progress in the Cowboys' negotiation. And they need a long-term solution. And the long-term solution could be Deshaun Watson. For all this to work, Dallas would have to get DAK to sign the tag, so he'd be under contract, with the understanding that he'd be traded to the Texans. That would be part of the signing. The Texans would make it clear that they're going to pay Prescott the contract that he wants, or thereabouts. I mean, they would agree on a contract in unison with agreeing to sign the tag here. He would agree to a contract in Houston, $40 million APY or whatever. Meanwhile, Watson in Houston would have to waive his no trade clause. Probably not a problem, right? Get out of Houston, move to Dallas. Who wouldn't do that? I'm half kidding, but not so much. But he would waive his no trade clause, surely, to come to Dallas. And then he'd become the Cowboys' hub. Now, that's a lot of hoops to jump through. But there's more. What about the finances involved? I'll do this part quickly because it's a little dull, but it's important. Taking on Watson would not be burdensome for his new team. Texans responsible for the $27 million in prorated signing bonus. That still sticks with them. And here comes a 25-year-old superstar quarterback with cap figures of 16, 40, 42, 37, and 32. His $16 million is his cap hit this year. That's, almost a third of what DAK's APY would be. However, not a third of what his base salary would be. We'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, you can see that's affordable for the new team. Very inviting. That's a bonanza. He's a high character. Forget what you think you know in the last 13 days. They did this to him. This is a high character, leadership, incredibly talented and accomplished 25-year-old quarterback. Any trade of Watson is not a bonanza for Houston, however, not cap-wise. $5.6 million cap charge in dead money. They have to budget for the new quarterback. In this scenario, Dak Prescott. Now, it's not $40 million. That's not what they have to budget for. They can spread out his money over the course of a long time too, in the deal that they sign with him. So his first year he might be $20 million or something. So that's fine. They can make that work, and you spread out the money, and they get some elbow room cap wise because they don't have a bunch at the start. Houston will have other options. Option number one is to fix what they have with the guy they have, but they will get Miami offering Tua. They will get, let's say, the Jets offering Darnold. But those guys aren't established winning leadership stud Pro Bowl quarterback. There's only one of those. There's only one of those that figures as dealable here. You could make an argument for some other quarterbacks around the league who are under contract but older, or out of contract, but nobody who's 27, who's pretty much a perennial Pro Bowler, and high quality, and all the leadership, and all the DAK. Again, Texans fans are uncomfortable with this idea. I think you're uncomfortable with this idea, but I really do think talking about DAK for DESHAUN in a reasonable, sober way by analysts and smart people, that's us, not screaming it, just talking through it. I think there's value in it, and I know there's value in the teams doing it. Quickly now, I knew Coach Landry a little bit. I came to Dallas in 1990 after he had departed the Cowboys, but he would come on my radio show and come in the studio, and he was delightful. He really was, and I enjoyed him very much. We met Mrs. Landry twice, I believe, and I put a picture up on social media at Fish Sports, and it's a cocktail party, and I don't know how I snuck in there, but she could not have been more gracious. And yet, one of the great things about Alicia Landry, who passed away this week at age 91, is her standing by her man, Tommy. He called him Tommy. And they met at University of Texas, and they fell in love, and they got married, and away they went to an incredible, incredible ride. But if I remember the story right, I mean, she wasn't a fan of the Joneses. And you have to be old enough to know this, to remember this. Everybody thought Coach Landry should have been done. Everybody. I mean, except him, except Tommy. and Alicia. Right? It was the city, Cowboys fans, national media recognized it was time. And then Jerry comes in, the deed gets done, uh, and now all of a sudden Coach Landry is a martyr. He doesn't need that. He's too good for that, and so was Mrs. Landry. Every bit as good as Tommy. And then at the end of this week, we also have the passing of Hank Aaron. And I told this story on 105.3 The Fan. I'll tell it briefly to you. So I do paintings of athletes, and they're pretty good. I'll show them to you next time around. And and then I'd have the guy on my radio show, and then he'd sign the painting. And he always thought it was pretty cool. Now this is 1995, so this is before you could just press a button and make a painting. This is actual painting with a brush. And so I have a Muhammad Ali that is my pride and joy, and it's a painting by me, signed by him, priceless. I have a painting of Hank Aaron because he came into my studio just like Muhammad Ali came on my show. And Mr. Aaron was fantastic, and he was great storyteller, but he was very somber, very serious, even in a visit. And then we had lunch. He's the same way. And knowing that that's the way my understanding was that he was, I wanted to paint something of him that wasn't somber. So I painted a picture of him when he must have been 19 years old, and he's leaping for a ball, falling back into a fence, the old wooden fence in minor league ballparks in 19 whatever. And he was probably in single A or something. It says Braves, but you could tell it's a rickety old ballpark, and I'm really proud of the painting. And so I brought it to the studio that day, to my radio show. Hank Aaron, I asked him to sign it. Everybody does, no big deal. Again, this isn't autograph hunting, by the way. This is something a little different. You'll if you haven't seen him, I really will. I'll show him to you, and I think you'll understand. Well, I'm such a dumbass. I forgot. I forgot to pull it out so he could see it and sign it. I think I was so intimidated by his somberness that I reminded myself, I just better shut up and think straight and be on my game. And then we ate lunch, and then he left, and now I have this, what I believe is this really fantastic watercolor painting that I did of Hank Aaron with an empty spot where his name should have been. And of course, if you're a baseball fan or a sports fan or somebody that believes in what's right in terms of how our society should operate and ideally can operate, then you're a fan of what Hank Aaron did. So rest in peace, Alicia, and rest in peace, Hank Aaron. Fish, out.